I was expecting somebody else to fill in this video, but they had to cancel on me. And so as a result of that expectation, I have not considered what it is I will ask. So I have gathered together books of poetry and of philosophy, and will now proceed to read through them, one of them, and look for a good quotation that I happen to want to read already. And I shall read it to you and give you my thoughts on it. This comes from the poem East Coker and T.S. Eliot's The Four Quartets, Section 2. What is the late November doing with the disturbance of the spring, and creatures of the summer heat, and snowdrops writhing under feet, and hollyhocks that aim too high, red into gray and tumble down, late roses filled with early snow? Thunder rolled by rolling stars simulates triumphal cars, deployed in constellated wars, scorpion fights against the sun, until the sun and moon go down, comets weep and leonoids fly, hunt the heavens and the plains, whirled in a vortex that shall bring the world to that destructive fire which burns before the ice cap rains. That was a way of putting it, not very satisfactory. A paraphrastic study in a worn-out poetical fashion, leaving one still with the intolerable wrestle with words and meanings. The poetry does not matter. It was not, to start again, what one had expected. What was to be the value of the long-looked-forward-to, long-hoped-for calm, the autumnal serenity and wisdom of age? Had they deceived us, or deceived themselves, the quiet-voiced elders, bequeathing us merely a receipt for deceit? The serenity only a deliberate habitude, the wisdom only the knowledge of dead secrets, useless in the darkness into which they peered, or from which they turned their eyes. There is, it seems to us, at best, only a limited value in the knowledge derived from experience. The knowledge imposes a pattern, and falsifies, for the pattern is new in every moment, and every moment is a new and shocking valuation of all we have been. We are only undeceived of that which, deceiving, could no longer harm. In the middle, not only in the middle of the way, but all the way, in a dark wood, in a bramble, on the edge of a grimpen, where is no secure foothold, and menaced by monsters, fancy lights, risking enchantment. Do not let me hear of the wisdom of old men, but rather their folly, their fear and frenzy, their fear of possession, of belonging to another or to others or to God. The only wisdom we can hope to acquire is the wisdom of humility. Humility is endless. The houses are all gone under the sea, the dancers are all gone under the hill. What is the late November doing with the disturbance of the spring? I talked about progressive redemption and completed redemption in my last video. I think what this passage is talking about is those two things. Is completed redemption is the spring, and when everything comes to life and everything comes to fruition. And yet here, the late November, the dead months, are what are they doing with this disturbance of the spring, this progressive redemption? I think that's what that's talking about. But then this beautiful language that he uses, he puts down. He says, that was a way of putting it not very satisfactory. A paraphrastic study in a worn-out poetical fashion. The words are worn. The words aren't enough to describe what he is trying to describe. And let's see. A paraphrastic study in a worn-out poetical fashion, leaving one still with the intolerable wrestle with words and meaning. In order to see the beauty of the thing being described with the words, one has to wrestle with the words, wrestle intolerably with the words, in order to discern the meaning, in order to simply use the words. This intolerable wrestle with words and meanings is something that I love. This from C.S. Lewis's That Hideous Strength. Say that you have come in the name of God and all angels, and in the power of the planets from one who sits today in the seat of the Pendragon, and command him to come with you. Say it now. And Dimble, who had been sitting with his face drawn, and rather white between the faces of the two women, and his eyes on the table, raised his head, and great syllables of words that sounded like castles came out of his mouth. Jane felt her heart leap and quiver at them. Everything else in the room seemed to have been intensely quiet. Even the bird and the bear and the cat were still, staring at the speaker. The voice did not sound like Dimble's own. It was as if the words spoke themselves through him from some strong place at a distance. or as if they were not words at all, but present operations of God, the planets, and the Pendragon. For this was the language spoken before the fall and beyond the moon, and the meanings were not given in the syllables by chance or skill or long tradition, but truly inherent in them, as the shape of the great sun is inherent in the little water drop. This was language herself. The thing about human language is that our meanings are given to the syllables by chance or skill or long tradition. And that makes it impossible to have one unified meaning for anything. And that is what creates this intolerable wrestle between words and meanings. Because the meanings are not inherent in the words themselves. The meanings are interpretive. And their value is therefore limited to their interpretive quality. And the ability of the interpreter and the speaker to communicate. I was attending a lecture by a poet once, and he talked about how poetry is this guardian of mystery, in that it uses its language in a mysterious way, or it uses language in a way that is not always easy, it's not always simple, and is confusing at times. And I wonder why that is. Why is it that poetry is confusing or uses confusing language? And I think it is because common language can be interpreted so many different ways, whereas difficult language, with difficulty, can be interpreted fewer ways. Maybe I should be an English teacher. Should I be an English teacher? That's my question.